First, though, a remarkable story. 6 minutes past 12. Imagine being forced to spend pretty much every moment of every day lying flat on your back. Then imagine having to be like that for 8 years. That's what happened to my next guest, who was diagnosed with a respiratory virus after being bitten by a tick in 2014. That virus attacked her immune system in a devastating way. It turned her from a businesswoman running her own PR company, living life to the full, to someone who was trapped within the four walls of her home, unable to sit up for more than 20 seconds at a time. Her name is Emma Dolan Horlick, and thanks to treatment, she can now sit up some of the time. She's turning her story into a book, a comedy, in fact. It's called The Diary of a Horizontal Girl. She's a remarkable woman, and I had the chance to talk to her. So I began by asking, let's go to the beginning, back to the very beginning, and how it all started.
I was already at that point slightly unwell. I'd been diagnosed with ME and I was run down a lot. And I contracted a really bad respiratory virus. And within a week of me getting this flu, that was in the middle of the summer, so it was really odd. I suddenly realised that this was not going to end well, because I was very aware that my body was reacting incredibly unusually to what had happened, and everything became really difficult. So I was trying to, whenever I tried to sit up or stand or move around, my heart rate would just fly through the roof, my blood pressure would drop, I would start to lose my vision, and it became a norm for me to be crawling around the floor and to stay kind of horizontal to relieve the symptoms that were so debilitating.
And did you know it was because of this tick bite?
So at the time, I had no idea, and when I look back now, it all began when I was bitten by a tick and I got Lyme disease when I was in America. And my health just deteriorated gradually. And I think at the point of me getting that virus, I was so, my immune system was so attacked and so depleted from the Lyme disease that I just couldn't fight it. And whatever had happened at that point was kind of too much for my body to take. But unfortunately, it affected me in so many different ways. And I ended up completely bedbound for years.
And before we kind of move on to the years, at the beginning, when you were this ill, who did you talk to? What were experts saying to you?
I talked to everybody that I could possibly talk to, every ologist, cardiologist, endocrinologist, I mean, the lot. I spoke to everybody trying to get answers. And there was this kind of instant, almost a refusal to accept that at some point when I'd been bitten by this tick, that there was a problem with my immune system. And so the answers that I was getting were just consistently, you've got severe ME, which I did, and I knew I had that. And now you're in the 25% of people in the country that end up bedbound with this particular condition. But I instinctively knew there was more to it. And so I kind of did a lot of digging and a lot of research myself, which was exhausting, but it was what kept me going and what kept me fighting to find out what was happening.
So how old were you when the illness began?
I was 39.
39. So
yeah.
And even though you were ill with another condition, pretty gung-ho, pretty kind of energetic.
I was running a PR, marketing and events company. That's no easy task, I can tell you that. I was very much excited about the future. I was investing in the company, trying to expand into different areas, and I was loving what I was doing and enjoying life quite significantly. I went from that to pretty much having myself completely isolated in a room which was pitch black. I couldn't tolerate light, sound, touch. Everything was, I was just basically curled up in a ball in bed. trying to get through the day.
Wow. Okay. So how did the next few years look? Because you were 39 at the time. When did you become bedbound?
So it was a couple of months into me getting the flu where I pretty much knew that something was very wrong and I couldn't get out of bed, and I was having to use a wheelchair that would tilt me back, because it was the only way that I couldn't sit in a chair even because my blood pressure would just drop. So everything became impossible by about December 2014.
Right. And how did it impact your life? I mean, I know the pretty obvious is you're not as mobile physically, but how else? You were a businesswoman. You obviously had a
Yeah,
life. How did it affect it?
it was impossible to function. It was just impossible. I was trying to run a business from my bed, and I had a great team at the time, but it really is impossible. It's just impossible to do that. So everything became a sudden grief of losing what I had to what was going on now. And the frustration of not having answers and not understanding what was going on was so debilitating, because I just had this urge to get fixed, get better, and get on with my life. And I couldn't do that. So I had to let go of the business. I had to let go of that person that I was, and who I wanted to be, and then just spend every effort and every minute that I had, and all my energy into what is going on and how do I fix this.
So then let's move on. Let's move on into kind of how, if you improved, your physical condition improved.
So to a degree, it's improved in the fact that I'm now upright now, but that's taken 8 years. So I was lying in bed for 8 years. That doesn't come without its complications. And I've got many other problems that have occurred along the way.
So Emma, tell me, what was preventing you from sitting up or standing up?
So the autonomic nervous system, which is actually located in your brain, was misfiring basically, and it's a condition called dysautonomia. And I still have it. I have POTS, which is called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And what happens is that when you sit or you stand, your blood pressure can drop, your heart rate shoots up, and all the autonomic responses that your body kind of just automatically does can misfire and can go wrong. So people generally can't control their temperature. They start to sweat. Their heart rate can go incredibly high. And, with me, my eyesight would go. I would start to lose consciousness. My blood pressure would drop. My heart rate would be through the roof. And then it got so severe that I couldn't even roll in the bed without triggering these autonomic responses. And it was only through years and years of perseverance that I managed quite recently, in the last 12 months, to get on the right medication that I could tolerate, which started to support my blood pressure and lower my heart rate down, which is why I'm sat up talking to you now.
Where did you find the strength? This is what I don't understand. To, one, pursue diagnosis. I know you went to the United States for treatment
I did.
as well.
Yeah.
And also, you didn't know how long you'd be unable to be upright. To be prone
No.
for so long and have such a change of life. What kept you going?
It's probably the question I get asked most. How did you cope with this and what kept you going? But I just never gave up hope that there was answers out there, and that at some point I would figure it out and I would be able to try and get myself into some better quality of life. But look, don't get me wrong. I'd be doing an injustice to everybody out there who suffers with the conditions that I've got. Life is still an endless battle, and the day doesn't start for me until around 11 or 12 o'clock, because my blood pressure is so low and I feel so unwell that I have to wait for all the medication to kick in. I have to make sure I'm having enough fluids to get my blood pressure up. Just because we appear to kind of be normal doesn't mean that we're not suffering on a daily basis. But at that point of being completely bedbound, there was no other choice for me. There was no other choice. It was either lie there and suffer, and I can't begin to tell you how traumatic it is to be stuck in a bed and in a room for years. So there was no other choice. The choice was lie and put up with what is going on without answers, or fight for as much as you can, which is what I did. And I got through it because I've got a good sense of humour as well. And that's why I started writing the book, really, Diary of a Horizontal Girl, and doing my blog on Twitter, because there is a lot of hilarity about being stuck in bed and having to do things horizontally, and those little things kept me going.
Well, I mean, I'm sure, to find the humour in a tragic situation is that requires a strength in itself. Can you give me an idea of, something funny?
I think one thing springs to mind constantly, in that I was quite unwell, and the carer had phoned the doctor, the on-call doctor, and he came out quite late, and I'd eaten my dinner and kind of lay down on my side to try and feel a little bit better, because that's one of the things that I was always kind of doing, was lying on my side, because it was the only way I could calm my autonomic nervous system down. And when he came, I was kind of rolled over, and he said, "Do you mind if I examine your stomach?" And I said, no, not of course. And I lifted my top up to the horror of 2 garden peas in my belly button. And I think that at that point I stopped eating garden peas, because trying to eat and drink lying flat, I mean, honestly, it's an art without choking and dropping things all over you. And it was just this horrifying moment, but it was funny at the same time. I just kind of flicked them off, hoping that he didn't see the peas. But there's so much more to it. When you're in your early 40s and being, getting real here, you've suddenly gone from being this social butterfly out and about running events and enjoying life, to having to use a bedpan and have carers look after you, and not be able to even wash yourself because you can't sit up or turn around. It's devastating. It really is devastating. And that's why I want to raise awareness, because I'm not an isolated case, and this isn't something that is going away. And with COVID, especially long COVID, we're seeing more of these cases appear, and it's devastating, really, that there's people out there who don't have the ability to research and fight as hard as I did, and don't have the family support or the carers that I've got. And so it's important for me to shout as loud as possible about this.
To what end? What would be the ideal response to the shouting?
I think that we have to look at what's being funded into research for post-viral illnesses like ME, chronic fatigue, Lyme disease, and now long COVID, fibromyalgia, these conditions where we just don't know enough about. And we're seeing a hell of a lot of these people with autonomic issues. And that's, that is something that happened to me post-virally, and it's happening to long COVID people as well. And we just need more money ploughing into it to research the mechanism behind what's going on for our bodies to suddenly, kind of in a neurological way, not respond to being upright quite right, and how our bodies are really affected by viruses, why some are and why some aren't. There's just not enough research into it.
You talk about your carers and you talk about family. How much did they, do they give in terms of keeping you going?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't be looking like this if I didn't.
And I
have
will
the
say to anyone who is listening that on the end of this Zoom call, you look very glamorous.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel better to kind of get my hair done and get the lippy out. But you know, I wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't be here. I genuinely wouldn't be here. There was times I've been in and out of hospital so many times with adrenal crisis, which is you know, a life-threatening condition, and you know, severe autonomic disruptions. So my blood pressure would be so low or then shoot up so high, and my heart rate was uncontrollable. And without that care and without that support, I definitely wouldn't have been able, and still wouldn't. You know, I rely on them to do most things. You know, whilst I'm sat up now, after we finish this call, the first thing that my carers will be doing is getting me in the wheelchair back to the bed so I can lie down and kind of recover. So you know, I'd be lost without them. I just couldn't have lived without their help.
You talk about getting on the lippy, and you talk about kind of where you're at. What can you do physically now? Can you get out and see people, kind of, you know, interact more with the world? And physically, what are you able to do today?
I can get out. I've got this fancy new chair that reclines, and my feet come up as well. So I can get out for very short periods. As to what I can do when I'm out, I don't know, because this is all very new to me, and it's literally been weeks since I've been able to get outside where I live. I've been in a neuro rehab, in and out, physiotherapy, all sorts, trying to get me to this place. So I still can't do small tasks like cooking for myself, and you know, there's still an immense amount of help needed. Even when I'm going outside, I have to be with somebody, because at any point I can start to pass out and need to put my chair back and legs up, and so we have to gauge each day as it is. But the other day I literally went to the co-op to buy a pint of milk in my Chanel lippy, because this was the first for me in 9 years to go to a grocery shop and just get buy something. And it's those little things that are just incredible to me, really, that you know, it's those little achievements that keep me going.
And social media has helped in that, because I know you've had some support from celebrities, other celebrities as well.
Yes, social media has been a huge part, Twitter especially. I call them my beans, and they are so supportive. And I've had a lot of celebrities.
You call them your what? Your beans?
My beans, my human beings.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's been incredible for me because I was very isolated. So social media played a huge role. Ricky Gervais has been fantastic, and Jane Fallon, their support was incredible. Gary Lineker, I mean, honestly, the support's been fantastic. And they've been helping me throughout this journey. They've been integral in me keeping my sanity, because I felt that I was part of a community, you know.
What next for you?
Well, I need to get this book out, Diary of a Horizontal Girl. Hopefully we will get that. That all went on hold because I suddenly got my rehab and started trying to get back into my wheelchair again, which is going great. I have a lot going on. There's still a lot of stuff going on. And again, it depends on how I'm feeling day on day. But I do have a campaign that's about to start to raise awareness about emergency injections for Addison's disease. I am just really focused on trying to get my health as better as it can be. I don't think I'll ever be the same person, and I'm certainly okay with being in a wheelchair. But yeah, just taking each day as it comes, and I'm fighting for people to understand how there is many people around the world who are suffering with this.
And in terms of thoughts of when this could improve, what's the prognosis?
That I don't know. And it is it's something that I have to just be prepared to live with. And I mean, when I'm sat up for long periods of time, after 2 hours, I need to lie down. And I'm hoping that at some point it will get easier. But the reality is that it might not, and it probably won't. But I've lived a life in bed, and I'm now in a chair that can tilt. And this life is like winning the lottery in comparison to what I have been living. So I'm good with the fact that this might not get any better than this. I just, I'll take this.
Emma, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for highlighting what's going on with you and so many others. And good luck with the writing. I look forward to hearing more about the comic moments as well as the harsh realities of what you've been through. Emma Dolan Horlock, thank you.
Thanks, Naga. Thanks for listening.